This is a remembering video on a very impactful woman known as Eleanor Roosevelt. And before I begin sharing her story with you, I wanted to first reach out and find out what people knew about her and see if they knew the reason why she is known as the historical figure in our world today. Hello, so today we have Brandon Keene with us, and he is going to answer some questions on a historical figure for who he does not know who yet. And can you first tell us a little bit about yourself?
Howdy guys, name's Brandon Keene, 19 years old. I go to Texas A&M University and I'm an engineering major.
Thank you. Okay, so the historical figure we're going to talk about is Eleanor Roosevelt. Do you know who she is?
Eleanor Roosevelt. Pretty sure that's Teddy Roosevelt's wife.
Okay, can you tell us why she is known as a historical figure in our country today?
Historical figure. I'm pretty sure she had something to do with like women's rights and maybe like the Something Falls Convention about trying to get women the right to vote. Don't know exactly what she did, but I'm pretty sure she was like a big women's rights activist or something along those lines.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks, and gig.
Okay, so today we have Ruben Dominguez with us, and he's going to answer a few questions on a historical figure as well, for whom he does not know who yet. And can you first tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Ruben Dominguez. I go to Texas A&M. I'm a grad student, and I work part-time for the athletic department.
Perfect, thank you. So what we're going to be talking about is Eleanor Roosevelt. Do you know who Eleanor Roosevelt is?
She was Franklin Roosevelt's wife. She was the first lady, and she did a lot of good for the country.
Okay, can you elaborate a little bit more exactly why she is a historical figure?
I want to say she's the first lady to be like as involved as she was. She did a lot for kids and education, reading, I think specifically.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, so today we have Bryn with us, and she is going to tell us a little bit about herself and then answer some questions on a historical figure. Can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Bryn. I'm a graduate student at Texas A&M in sports management. I don't know what else you need to do.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Eleanor Roosevelt is going to be the person that we're talking about today. Do you know who she is?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit of why she's known as a historical figure in our country?
I actually don't remember what she's known for.
Okay, thank you so much. As you can see from these videos, the knowledge of Eleanor Roosevelt ranges from low to high amounts of information of who she is and what she did for our country. Eleanor Roosevelt was born Anna Eleanor Roosevelt on October 11, 1884 in New York City. The niece of President Theodore Roosevelt, Eleanor was known as a shy child and experienced tremendous loss at a young age, with her mother dying in 1892 and her father dying 2 years later. She was just 10 years old. Eleanor was sent to a school in England when she was a teenager, an experience that helped her draw out of her shell. In 1905, Eleanor married her distant cousin, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who later became President of the United States. The couple had 6 children: Anna, James, Franklin, Elliot, Franklin Jr., and John. Despite her busy home life, Eleanor became active in public service during World War I. She assumed several volunteer jobs in Washington, D.C., working for 2 private aid organizations, which was providing supplemental care specifically and all service, generally the Navy Relief Society, which focused on special needs of sailors and American Red Cross. Besides traditional fundraising, Eleanor Roosevelt joined the other spouses of prominent officials in booths located in the Union Station in Washington. Here they prepared sandwiches and coffee and distributed them to thousands of servicemen departing by train for seaport locations, from where they shipped out to European front. At conclusion of World War I, Eleanor Roosevelt worked briefly as a volunteer translator of French for 1919 International Congress of Working Women when it convened in Washington, D.C. She also accompanied her husband in his tour immediately after the war's end, touring battlefields and returning as part of Wilson's presidential party that went to Europe to negotiate the terms of the war's end. After her husband suffered a polio attack in 1921, Eleanor stepped forward to help Franklin with his political career. When her husband became president in 1933, Eleanor dramatically changed the role of the First Lady. Not content to stay in the background and handle domestic matters, she showed the world that the First Lady was an important part of American politics. She gave press conferences, spoke out for human rights, children's causes, and women's issues, working on behalf of the League of Women Voters. She has had her own newspaper column, My Day. She also focused on helping the country's poor, stood against racial discrimination, and during World War II traveled abroad to visit United States troops. Her extraordinary history of experience and work in progressive advocacy policy, the media, education, and women's issues, however, greatly informed her as she found the direction, established her agenda, and relied on professional contacts. In terms of her life experiences and her evolving vision as First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt was unprecedented in the comparison to others who had or would assume the role. For her active role in public policy, Eleanor was heavily criticized by some. She was praised by others, however, and today she is regarded as by the women's and civil rights leader, as well as one of the first public officials to publicize important issues through mass media. Following her husband's death on April 12, 1945, Eleanor told interviewers that she didn't have plans for continuing the public service. "The story is over," she reportedly stated. However, the opposite would actually prove to be true. President Harry Truman appointed Eleanor as delegate to the United Nations General Assembly, a position in which she served from 1945 to 1953. She became chair of the UN's Human Rights Commission and helped to write her Universal Declaration of Human Rights, an effort that she considered to be her greatest achievement. President John F. Kennedy reappointed her the United States delegation in the UN in 1961, and later appointed her the National Advisory Committee of the Peace Corps and to the chair of the President's Commission on the Status of Women. Outside of her political work, Eleanor wrote several books about her life and experiences, including This Is My Story in 1937, This I Remember in 1949, On My Own in 1958, and Autobiography in 1961. Eleanor died of aplastic anemia, tuberculosis, and heart failure on November 7, 1962, at the age of 78. She was buried at the family estate in Hyde Park. A revolutionary First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt was one of the most outspoken women to live in the White House. While she's had her share of critics, most agree that she was a great humanitarian who dedicated much of her life to fighting for political and social change.